I'd like, if you will, to participate with me in a little bit of a thought exercise. And that is where you're looking at me up on stage here, you're not seeing Dave. You're actually seeing my avatar. Let me frame that a little better. This is my body, my consciousness, and my experience that you're seeing is through my body. And I want to make this a little more personal for you in that where you're sitting or wherever you're standing, that what your body is a machine. This machine is carrying out the will and intentions of your consciousness. And you might say, well, that's odd. Why would you want me to make a distinction between these two? Because that's actually what happens between, for people who perceive, 774 times a day in the United States. That's actually 282,510 people per year. I did the math for you, so. That's 4 to 15% of the population of the U.S. that have this experience where they perceive their consciousness as external of their body. And this is called a near-death experience. There's a sensitive area for many people, and I completely respect and understand why. Now, what a near-death experience is, as I described to you, it's an avatar representation. The person who goes through this dies. Their body is considered dead, and by all instruments to tell us it is. But yet they leave that avatar and have this profound experience that they would tell you that avatar would have kept them from being capable of having. So this consciousness is in a new reality. And this new reality puts them through subjective and many types of archetypal type of events, if you will, experiences, which I'll get into in a minute. What's interesting to me about this is that the simulations that near-death experiences have are very close to virtual reality in the avatar state, in that I can put on a virtual reality headset and in a well-designed representation or simulation, I will feel like my body is something else other than where I am. I've embodied a new experience. I'm in a new reality. You might ask why I'm interested in doing this and how I see the correlation between the two. Well, obviously the avatar state is what I think is a good, solid starting point for this. But what I do professionally is I am a experience designer, instructional designer, if you will. I take multimedia and materials and I design web interfaces, software interfaces, and I use multimedia and I put them together to create a training experience that connects you to the learning material that I want you to feel personal and at one with, so you can get the best out of it. So to me, this is profound, these two similarities. It's another interesting thing about near-death experience is that none of them are alike. But as I said before, many of them have similarities that I'm going to share with you in a minute that my simulation of virtual reality I'm working on will help to emulate. See, I want to emulate through virtual reality the epiphanies that people are having in near-death experiences. Because the epiphanies they're having are sometimes, when they're coming back to this reality, are changed dramatically. Their behaviors are different. Their worldview is different. And there's two camps that are actually looking at this. These two camps are geared towards understanding consciousness. They're looking at the study of near-death experiences, obviously because of the transformational change, and we're trying to come to terms with what is this consciousness and body relationship that we have. Materialists will look at consciousness and say, this is a byproduct of the brain. Our brain creates our consciousness, and our consciousness, therefore, is an experience that is put together by that relationship. Sense of presence, if you will. And dualists or spiritualists will say that our consciousness is external of our body, and it then uses our brain as a receiver. And we see both of these still having, to my opinion, as narrow as it might be, that this is an avatar state still. Something is happening. There's still a distinction between. And we see this through near-death experiences. What I want to do is to be able to take this virtual reality simulation of near-death experiences on a specific subset I'm going to share with you in just a second, and make it available to you through this for a very specific reason. You see, what people are experiencing in near-death experiences on the subset, now again, like I said, they're all vary. They have a variety of these that can take place. But the specific I'm looking at have an archetype. And that is that, obviously, as I stated, the body is an avatar. They leave that experience, and they are now embraced or immersed into something new, a new reality. The subset I'm looking at to develop after is that there is a deity or a light that they meet. And this is obviously subjective, of course, who you're talking to. Some will say it's God. Some will say consciousness. Some will say source. But ultimately, they realize it is a conscious and aware of each other's presence. The next thing is that they have what is an impressed feeling to me, and I'll share with you why I think it's important, of unconditional love in this experience. They also have a judgment or a life review. Now, this is key. This is part of the simulation I'm getting into, because what happens when we realize ourselves inside of a room that is full of people who love us and accepted? We're far more possible to feel like, okay, if they have any criticism for us, we're going to receive that, right? We're going to take their judgment a little more pleasant because we know they love us. But what is profound about the near-death experience subset I'm looking at is that the judgment they receive is not from somebody else. It's not, say, from the deity or an outside source or even from their own personal judgment. What they are experiencing is they have a third state avatar experience, and I'll describe that as where they leave this perception of where they are, even have left the body already, and they embody the person of everybody, the body of everybody they met. They felt in their heart and thought in the mind what the person felt and how they treated them in life. The power of this, I think, is very obviously, it has an opportunity to recalibrate, I think. And this is what we see that happens with them when they come back into this reality. They are recalibrated somehow. So another study around what I want to share with you in this is that, obviously here, I'm sorry for putting this thing, they come back with behavioral changes. Now, what I want to be able to share with you is something that I think is we all have in common, and it's our birth, our death, and in between those two dates, the judgment of others. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's unnecessary. But almost always what it is there's some form of an opinion that we hold. And this opinion that we hold for each other turns into judgments. And I would submit to you today that this is an amazing tool of judgment that we're using against each other. Not the phone itself. But if we haven't understood so far, many people are unfamiliar with the way that our online account profiles are called avatars. And if I'm in this avatar and my consciousness is directing this behavior, then am I one more removed in how I express my behavior here? Because I'd say that many times we are. Many times we find ourselves behaving here differently than we do here. And why is that? Is that this is some kind of another out-of-body experience we're having? What is this avatar doing? What am I allowing this to represent me or my consciousness in doing? Now, I don't take opinions lightly. I mean, our opinions are something that we formulate with craft and care, and they're meaningful to us. But when we turn them into harsh judgments, I think that's where we need to realize that something is broken in the process. And now I want to introduce to you the other part of this concept, is that this is a bridge. Our heart and our mind. Now, this is nowhere near the first time that virtual reality has been presented from the stage here at TED or anywhere else. And the pioneers who have advanced the technology and the capabilities of virtual reality have dubbed virtual reality as the empathy machine. And because it has some very profound capabilities of giving somebody an immersive experience where they feel differently about something. And this has been proved by a number of studies. I'm submitting we are the empathy machine. And that is a tool, just like this is a tool. If this empathy machine is broken, then it needs repair or recalibrating. I see the way that, let me get into a little bit of this neuroscience for just a moment. We are an empathy machine by this biomechanic that our brain has what is called mirror neurons. Now pause for a moment. Mirror neurons, what is a mirror? We're reflecting each other. In fact, science tells us an understanding at this day and age that the mirror neurons are what helps us to experience empathy. It's that key thing that gives us the possibility of having empathy for each other. that our brain speaks to our heart. Our heart neurons respond with pathogens and chemicals and says, I know what that is. I know how to respond to that. And it feeds it to the brain, and the brain's like, okay, good deal. We're working together. Let's go. I know how to deal with this. If obviously, this isn't firing. This bridge is weak. That is why I see a specific capability of this virtual reality immersion experience, simulation of near-death experiences being possibly provided through this device itself, that you could turn it sideways. Log out of your profiles for an hour. Give yourself an opportunity to recalibrate and see the world through somebody else's eyes. Yes, my first simulation is geared towards this subset of near-death experiences. But I see that the power of being able to retool this calibration or restructure this bridge to make it healthy can be done holistically, and the ideal way, obviously. A number of ways to do that. But for those who seem to be stuck here, maybe this is quickly and easily to download and put it into the headset and experience this. Something that really made this idea set home with me was through a personal situation with my family. Let me jump through some of these slides here. Forgive me. This is obviously telling us how we use judgment against each other. The NDE judgment is that piece that is so important to be able to make sure that we get into this simulation properly. Because it's not something that is, as I said, it's subjective. It's not something that's going to stand out for one person more than the other in the way that this experience is created, but rather the firing of these neurons and this avatar state is very valuable to us to be able to get out of our heads and get into our hearts and to be able to recalibrate the two of them together. So 80% of those who return from near-death experiences come back with a strong concern for others. And here I am titling this, The Empathy Machine and Avatar's Bridge to Understanding, when apparently what's happening with near-death experiences, they're coming back with not just understanding, but concern. I think you'd agree with me, concern is far more of a depth of relationship than just understanding is. And again, they find that life has meaning and purpose that they didn't see before. On the point of judgment, real briefly, I'd say that there is some sort of universal moral law or code, whether it be through our DNA or whether it be through the histories of humanity from the beginning of time, that is formed in us, or if it's just simply because it's taught to us in kindergarten. Here's what it looks like to be a good human. How are we failing when we get one step removed from who we say we are? And how can we recalibrate and get that back? Some unplug, go holistic. I get it. For some, this might be a healing tool. And I say that in this sense. With my family, we had a pet. This dog, Kasha is her name. She was with us trying to get this up here. Let me pass through, I'm sorry, let me get through this. Kasha is a dog that we had, and I'm sorry, this isn't the updated slide deck, so sorry. We jumped through these. Kasha's a dog that we had. And I say had, obviously you know where this is going. 2 years old, just under 2 years old, she had been diagnosed with these cancerous tumors and cysts that are wrapped through her body, all of her organs and her arteries. She went through a tremendously invasive surgery. We knew that this is our last day with her. At this moment, we're laughing and crying and remembering all the moments we had with her and looking at her eyes, batting at us, and the tail wagging, knowing that this is your last memory with us, too. All this was so many emotions were running through us, right? One of the daughters in that image, up to a month later, every day she's still crying. Sometimes wailing. She had such a connection with this animal in her life, this beautiful creature. And I didn't tell her this. The night of that event, our last night with her, I took a 360-degree camera and I recorded a video of that moment. I loaded it up into the Oculus headset, the Go headset, and I put it on her. She trusted me. She doesn't know what's going to happen. I just said, just trust me. Put this on. Instantly, she's immersed. She's looking back around. She can see the moment. She's back in the moment. She's hearing everything that was said and everything that was done of the experience. And she was able to look at this and she was able to connect to it again. Because what was broken with her here was her memory of how well did I say goodbye to Kasha. I need to see her again. I need to connect with her again. I say from that moment on, He still grieves. But something was recalibrated. The immersive experience of virtual reality was able to help her recalibrate the machine of empathy and understanding between her heart and her mind. We are an empathy machine. We are an avatar on a bridge to understanding. Now I want to leave you with a simple Chinese proverb. I hear and I forget. I see, I remember, but I do and I understand. Thank you.